So sometimes I get really inspired by simple little paintings that I see in unusual places. Not very long ago, someone sent me this lovely little card, and it had such a beautiful, simple watercolor on it that I wanted to see if I could recreate my own simple version. So this is what we're going to be doing today. All you need is your mixed media pad, one piece of paper, watercolors, you need your HB pencil, your fat Sharpie, and a couple of brushes. I have my big fat flat brush and my big fat round brush. All right, so this is what we're shooting for. Let's see what we can do. The first thing that we're going to do is to sketch out our plan. And we're going to start by having a vase down here. Now in this case, this card had it off center, but I think I'm going to center my drawing. So I'm going to come down, if this is halfway from the bottom, I'm going to come down a little bit more than halfway. And I'm going to make a line. That's going to be the top of my vase. And a couple of curved lines, and then a big vase. Something like that. Then I'm going to have my flowers coming out of my vase. So I'm going to make a long line that is a flower coming out this direction, one that's short coming out this direction, one that's kind of drooping down, and maybe a couple more, something like that. Those are just the stems on my flowers. And then I'm going to let a couple of these flowers be big. I'm going to give myself a spiral circle and a very kind of cartoony looking flower. Going to do the same thing, spiral circle, kind of a cartoony looking flower. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is just kind of a fun little watercolor. Maybe we have some smaller flowers. Something like that. And another big one with my spiral. And maybe some more small ones someplace in here, maybe a little cluster of them. Now, we probably also want to have something that looks like leaves, so I'm just going to loosely put in some leaves. Like so. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and develop that a little bit with my pen. And I'm using my fat Sharpie. Once I have my sketch in place, then I'm going to pick and choose which lines are going to be thick and thin. And I'm going to go ahead and make my vase. Ooh, my Sharpie is dying on me. Since I have this flower that's coming over in front of it, I think I'm going to avoid going over that with my Sharpie. And this is my own style that I just really like to decide some of these lines are going to be thick at the end and then thin. I don't think it's my Sharpie. I think that it's how the Sharpie is looking on the paper. Something like that. Give my spiral. And come back around so that some of those lines get nice and thick and bold. Okay, so that looks pretty good, but I think I'm going to go ahead and decide that some of these lines are going to get thicker, and then they're going to get thinner, and it just makes a more interesting looking drawing. Then it doesn't look like, it looks more like art. And doing this for all of my lines. Deciding where they're going to be thick and where they're going to be thin. It works really well if you use the side of your Sharpie instead of the point, because the side is nice and thick to begin with. I'm going to do all of my flowers first. All of my spirals. And I'm not even worrying that my flowers are all the same size. I'm not worrying that their petals all look exactly the same. I'm just kind of going with it. And I'm gonna get the leaves in here. Again, kind of picking and choosing, like where those leaves are fatter. Maybe get my little flowers in here. cluster. Okay. Now the last thing that I'm going to put in is the stems. It is the first thing that I drew, but I wanted my flowers to be in front of my stems. So that's why it's going to be the last thing that I put in ink. Now you can do a variation of this with any other kind of flower that you want. You can do tulips or lots of different roses, lots of different flowers. My stems are going to get a little bit fatter as I go down toward my vase. But this is definitely just kind of a fun, stylized vase of flowers. The perfect little project to give Mom for Mother's Day, maybe. Maybe Mom has a birthday that's coming up. Maybe Dad likes flowers. Who knows? All right, so now that my drawing is done, I can start to watercolor. I will give you cups in class, but since I didn't have a cup, I went ahead and put water in a bowl. You can take a look at your watercolors and open them up. It's so fun. You see some colors that are on top that are lovely. And you can open up each of these and it reveals more colors underneath. So exciting. We are going to be using some of the greens. We are going to be using some of the pinks and oranges and yellows, and we are going to be using some of the blues. So let's get started. We're going to start with the vase, and we're going to do a wet into wet technique. What that means is that your paper is wet and then you drop color into it, and it ends up giving it this like beautiful blurry look to it. So I'm going to zoom in so that you can see. And I'm just going to take my big fat brush and I'm going to get water on it, and I'm just going to paint with clear water into my vase. Okay, now you should be able to, yes, if you need to look at it from the side to make sure that it is shiny. You don't want to have so much water that it's running off of your paper, but you want it to be shiny. Now we did use Sharpies, which is great because this drawing is not going to bleed. Now I'm going to be dropping in some purplies and some blues. And so I have a nice purple here and some blues. And all I'm going to do is dampen my brush and pick up some of my blues. And I'm going to just dab it right into my wet into wet. And you can do as much blending as you would like, or you can leave it to kind of become its own semi-blended, semi-not blended. Now, I would like to have some stronger color, and so I'm going to maybe mix a little bit of blue and purple. interesting. Just kind of playing around. Now, keep in mind that watercolor is supposed to be very watery, right? So don't feel like it's going to look like your acrylics, because it's going to have its own look. Now we're going to go ahead and do a wet into wet for the flowers. And the way that we're going to do that is that we're going to wet our brush, and we're going to go ahead and add water to the entire background. Now this is water all over my drawing, and I'm going to switch to my round brush for my flowers and for my leaves. For the leaves, you can just pick up the green that you like, and you can kind of hit the area over the leaves. Now it's going to blend and blur, and that is part of the wet into wet technique. So embrace that. It's going to give it kind of this soft feel to it. And rinse that off, and now I can pick up some of my beautiful pinkies and drop them in. Ooh, I can tell that it's already drying on me. So I want to have that wet into wet technique. You have to work a little bit quicker. Get some of this. Just drop in some of that lovely color in and around my flowers. Maybe I want a little bit of the orange. It's totally okay if it's a tiny bit messy, because this is that soft look. I'm going to go ahead and pick up some yellow and find some little spots to put the yellow in. Now, if yours is doing kind of this, that mine's doing, where the water is running off, I'm going to show you what you can do to address that. So I'm going to rinse my brush so that it's clear water and it doesn't have any paint in it. And then I'm going to use it as a wick. And I'm actually going to dry it and then pick up some of that extra wet stuff. So I'm drying my brush, and then I'm picking up some of that extra wet stuff. See over here how it's really blended? I love that, and I don't mind that it kind of fell away from the flowers at all, but this here might be too much, so I'm just going to use my brush like a wick and pick that up, and then see if I can kind of blend in the background just a little bit. And that looks pretty good. Ooh, I love all of this soft, yummy. I just love this over here. It doesn't bother me at all that it is not exactly on the flower. And you can play around with it as much as you'd like. When you feel good about it, you can call it quits. Great job, guys. This is the one that gave us inspiration, and this is our own version. Awesome job.